When Nick asked me to speak at Pulse this year on the Internet of Things, I jumped at the opportunity. I've been investing in technology and innovation for 20 years, and I have seen my share of spectacular failure and a little bit of success thrown in. But I've always been intrigued by this notion of a connected world. So today, we have the opportunity to delve into that topic and talk with some of the foremost companies and experts in that world, and I'm excited to chair this next session.
Yes. Every physical tool you use to collaborate could actually be found in your laptop today.
I always think about fundamentally how technology is improving what we do or changing how we do it. We're really looking to partner with management teams, and we're really looking to support them and have them run their business. We're not looking to micromanage.
Our mission is very, very simple: to provide affordable, accessible, reliable, sustainable power to every person on the planet.
So our two speakers today, our first is Roland Trollope. Roland is the SVP and General Manager at Cisco. He's responsible for 4 different divisions at Cisco, including their Internet of Things initiative. Roland actually owns the collaboration group there as well. 3 years ago, he took that over. Today, he's grown it. It's now the second largest business unit within Cisco. He did this by focusing on customer success. He calls it simplification and product magic, the magical experience. So I'd like to have a warm welcome for Roland. And our second speaker is Ganesh Bell. Ganesh is the Chief Digital Officer at General Electric Power Systems. Surprisingly, they have 1,400 software engineers in San Ramon. I didn't know that, actually. Amazing. Huge investment. They're trying to take this old line company and turn it into a next generation powerhouse. Ganesh is responsible in driving this initiative. We're excited to have him here. He has a long heritage in the software business, having worked at companies like SAP, JD Edwards, and PeopleSoft. So welcome, Ganesh. Last week I had the privilege, my wife, it was my birthday, she took me to see Hamilton. I'm from New York. It was amazing. I was blown away by what they'd done with the play. It was genius, it was innovative, and to me it redefined what the Broadway experience was all about. If you're in New York, by the way, I'd highly recommend it. In terms of IoT, guys, when you guys think about it, how do you define it within your companies? And in terms of a Hamilton-esque notion of innovation, true innovation, how are you thinking about IoT?
I was wondering where you're going with that Hamilton reference. Like, maybe all the characters have sensors in their clothes.
They all rap, actually.
It's coming to San Francisco, by the way.
It is. Oh, it's amazing.
So I can't wait for that. So the question again.
The question, yeah, we didn't have a question.
What does it mean?
We're talking Broadway plays. And,
yeah, right, yeah.
What does it mean? And then really the notion of innovation. So how is it pushing Cisco in terms of how you think about innovation?
Well, there's too much, first of all, there's too much mumbo jumbo in Silicon Valley and tech talk, and it really is very confusing, I think, for a lot of people outside of the bubble. It's like a few of us live in the bubble, most people don't, and it's totally crazy. So I think the first thing to think about when I've been involved in technology for a really long time, connecting things. 25 years ago, I was connecting my Christmas tree watering pump, which was totally stupid of me to do. But, I think what's happened over the last, if you look at I see this as a third wave of the internet. The first wave really happened from 80-something till 2000, and that was creating the internet. The next wave was the last 15 years, 2000 to 2015, which was about building apps on the internet. And that period essentially really only disrupted commerce, media, and communications. And the whole rest of the world really hasn't been connected. So the next 15 years, kind of from now forward in my mind, is all about embedding the internet into everyday life. It's about taking, I'm sure we have 3,000 people here, which is awesome, 10x growth. Taking all of the products that you represent and making them come alive, and making them become smart, and making them become efficient and intelligent. And when that happens, the world changes in ways that is really actually hard to predict. and also very, very exciting when you start to think about it. So that's how I think about it. And of course, the way I think about my job is being the enabler to connect all of those things. Cisco's always really been about that, been about how do you make that happen. It turns out that the internet as we know it basically isn't going to work for all of this stuff, because we're talking about orders of magnitude more things. Think about sensors that can be sort of picked up by the handful and just thrown out into a field. The internet wasn't built for that. The internet was built for like a few nerds sitting at DARPA, connecting computers together and email. And I can say that because I'm a nerd myself. And so it was really about connecting people, and fundamentally people are different than things. Programmers don't usually like to think that, but it's true. And things behave very differently than people. And so there's a lot of changes that need to be made to the internet itself and to just how we're going to connect all of your products, essentially, and make that very, very easy for you. So that's my job at Cisco, or that's part of my job.
Could you give us an example of a project or program you're working on that would just kind of blow our minds in terms of changing the world and innovation?
Yeah, oh wow, okay, good question. I would start out with the biggest innovation happening with connected things today is in cars. I don't know how many of you you've all heard of Tesla. How many of you own a Tesla or drive one? Probably a handful of people. A few in the front. Okay, so I think Tesla is a great example where that's a connected experience. It's not a car. And I was wondering for a long time. I was reading these articles like, why is Google and why is Google doing this? I mean, they've got tons of cash, but there's got to be another reason. Why is Apple? Would you bet on Apple or Silicon Valley to be successful as car companies? And initially, I was kind of like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, we don't make cars here. We make software and hardware and technology. But if you think about a car as 4 wheels and a transmission and an engine, you'd be right. Like, Silicon Valley has no right to play in that space. If you think instead about a car like a Tesla, where most of the engineers working on a Tesla are not mechanics, they're not mechanical engineers building 4 wheels and a transmission and an engine. What they're doing is they're actually building cloud software and deep learning technology. And there's it's not the wheels and the engine and the transmission that you might think about in Detroit. It's actually 100 million lines of code, a connected cloud service, a cellular modem, 160 sensors, and a secure gateway router in the car. It basically looks like a data center on wheels. When you reimagine the car as that, all of a sudden it says, ooh, that looks much more like a technology company than it does like a car company. And the same is true of Uber and blah, 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 all the rest of them. So I think that's the innovation in cars is just, I think, phenomenal in terms of what's happening in terms of creating a connected experience. It makes it really frustrating if you drive a Tesla to go back and drive a non-Tesla because you're like, wow, why is this car so dumb? Doesn't remember what I did last time, that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
I need you to talk to my wife and tell her to buy me a Tesla because I don't have one.
You need to buy her one.
Yeah, that's actually a better idea. He's smarter than me. So Ganesh, GE, a lot of old products, I think, of refrigerators and power plants and stuff.
Yeah.
We just heard Roland talk about cars being kind of this thing we can turn into an IoT. So what's IoT at GE, and how does the old heritage actually meld with this?
Yeah, I think Rowan's right. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo in Silicon Valley. So my Twitter handle is Ganesh Bell. If you want to work on cool things that have a purpose, tweet to me. So when we think about Internet of Things, we think about a few things at GE. We're in really big industries, right? GE is a collection of companies. We're in energy or the electricity value chain, largely oil and gas, aviation, healthcare. And I look at all of the electricity value chain from the power business and GE Digital. So when we think of Internet of Things, it's something very simple. We've made big, important, heavy things that power the world. More than 1/3 of the world's electricity comes from a GE machine. And our customers produce even more of that. And when I look at anything that generates an electron, transmits, distributes electron, and consumes it at the professional level, there's about 7 billion devices by 2020 that will be connected. And these produce data that will dwarf the consumer internet. A single turbine, with a blade in a single turbine produces about 45 gigabytes of data for me a day. And that means massive opportunity. So a simple way to think about it is when all of these devices get connected, new value can be unlocked from all that data. And we believe over the next decade, our customers can generate about $1.3 trillion of value. And that's just value our customers can generate. That means that's the customer success I get to participate in with our entire ecosystem. And also it has societal value, right? It has huge value like reducing about 16 billion metric tons of carbon in the world, all through digital technology. I'm not talking about other hardware enhancements. Purely through software optimization, we can decarbonize the world. We can create 3.5 million jobs. And when you think about California, we've got to go in, by 2030, we have to reduce our emissions by 26 to 28%. Now, all of that's actually possible. The biggest lever that's available for all the companies is digital transformation or connecting devices and optimizing it with data. That means like Uber and Airbnb are cool, but I don't want my customers to be Ubered or Airbnb'd. So we're providing them a software service, a platform, and a suite of applications to help them transform their business models.
So you talk about a 10-year horizon when this is happening. When do we as consumers, like all of us in the audience here, start to actually see it in our daily lives?
You're actually seeing it right now. So in California, we're increasing our penetration of renewables, right? Everybody here would love to get their energy from a green, clean source. But if you integrate solar and wind, you've got to make up for that intermittency of power through other sources. That means a combined cycle gas power plant or a coal-fired power plant has to start up faster and put energy on the grid as soon as the wind dies down, as soon as the sun goes out. You've got to be able to predict the intermittent power sources. So you're already seeing this in action today in the grid, but we're also seeing this in consumption, right? If every electricity bulb here switches to LED, that's energy efficiency. So we just launched a new business called Current, where we're providing energy efficiency as a service to hospitals and energy-intensive industries. So this is already happening, and we're seeing it in our connected homes, and pretty soon that you'll be able to participate with your utility in a demand response program and turn down your consumption.
Absolutely. And when Nick asked me to speak, he assured me that this was the preeminent conference on customer success, and I think by the size of the audience and the energy in the air, it's a pretty clear statement that that's true. We have two companies here known for their customer centricity, Cisco and GE. I'm wondering, in this world of IoT and connected devices, how does that change your worldview of customer centricity?
Yeah, so in the past, GE had been just a hardware company with a services that we provided around that hardware. But our business was still around that thing or that hardware. And with digital, where we're becoming a digital industrial company where we're providing services that are connected, step one is we're getting connected with our own hardware, that's with our customers. That means we're getting more connected with our customers and their settings or the environment, and we're connecting more devices that we don't make back to our cloud. Now, I get to participate in new value creation with our customers, outcomes that I never had. So a simple way to think about the value that we're generating is, one, we've changed our business model from just hardware to being a digital company where we're selling software as a service, and we're even selling outcomes as a service. Because of the environment and the data, I can actually create a new business model with our customers where I share their risk profile. And that is the highest form of customer success, where I am betting my entire business model and the success of my customer. And because of that, I've got to change everything in how we work, how we operate.
Roland?
I could see a show of hands. How many of you are in companies that build products and sell those products to customers, like physical products? About half. How about service companies, services? About a third. So the most interesting insight, so you asked about Cisco. Most interesting insight for me is it more not about the technology itself, but about what it enables. Mm-hmm. And what IoT enables, as Ganesh was alluding to, is your product company to transition from selling static, sort of one-time sale products to alive, constantly connected services. And a product company and a service company do not look the same at all. Anybody who's transitioned from a product company to a service company would tell you it's a completely different way of thinking. And you all probably deal with a lot of product people. So let me talk about the implications of IoT and what it means. You've all probably dealt with product people. You guys are the face of the customer, essentially, inside of your organization. And so you're talking to the customer, and then you have to go back and talk to the product people. Well, and I'm a product guy, so most product people think they're a lot smarter than they really are. That's the first thing that you probably experience on a regular basis. And they make a lot of guesses about your product and its development and what it's doing in front of the customer because they don't know. If you've got a product that's not awake and alive and aware and connected, you don't really have that insight. So product people have gotten great at sort of justifying away their incredible insights into the customer without really having any insight. And we heard that earlier from Billy Bean when he talked about, like, it turns out that insight isn't like, your intuition really isn't all that great. Well, the same is true of your product people. And they often don't listen to you because, you're just another voice and they're smarter than you are for whatever it is. Or it's technology or mumbo jumbo comes back to the picture. So the real amazing transformation happens when you become a service company. Because when your product becomes connected, all of a sudden you get insight into how the customer uses the product. It's almost step one. You don't even need to change the technology or change anything. You just need to see how it's being used. And imagine the power for all of your companies if you could go back to that product person and say, by the way, that thing that you spent 8 months on, instead of doing the thing that I asked you to do, nobody's using it. So maybe you should look at the data next time, for example. So that is a very powerful position to be in. And frankly, a service company needs customer success. A product company, typically, we never had customer success. Where did it come from? It came from the SaaS world because we're transitioning from product companies to services companies, and we needed to have a different engagement model with the customer, and we were enabled to actually get all this amazing insight as a SaaS company. Well, now we're applying that writ large to every company. And so hence, when your company goes digital, or in a sense, connects that unconnected thing, customer success is mandatory. It's not optional, it's not something that would be nice to have. It's necessary and mandatory. And so that's how I think about, hello, there we go. That's how I think about IoT. I guess that means I've been talking too long. That's how I think about IoT. The biggest insight and most awesome sort of outcome is connected services that are smart and intelligent that deliver better experiences.
Yeah, I would add to it and agree that when your products get connected and you start having a continuous relationship with your customer where it's a service new business model, customer success becomes even more integral than in a SaaS company. Right? In fact, our customer success team is right here. GE didn't have a customer success team. Woo! We didn't have one because we sold widgets. Now we're actually innovating, and that's our business model. Like we went sold wind turbines to customers, but because of the data, we can now generate 20% more wind from the same machine. That becomes a new business model where we're not selling new hardware, we're selling a subscription to the output of the machine. That means adoption, engagement, usage matters, and mapping your customer journey, because the customers don't know what their success criteria is. You're jointly defining this and discovering new business models. So I would say it's an important aspect of how you become a digital company.
And Roland, you talked about intuition and getting closer to your customer, getting the data. I think about at home, I'm a cook, and in my kitchen I have an Alexa Echo. I talk to her as I'm cooking. She puts on the music I like. She sets timers. She does all this stuff. It's fantastic. Meals served. I sit down with my family. My wife gets totally freaked out because she thinks Jeff Bezos is actually listening to our conversation.
He is.
She's right. Which is beyond the beyond.
She's always right. Just forget that.
And she'll get me a Tesla too if I keep it up. But so how do you're now in this relationship where you're very close to your customer, whether it's wind farms and energy plants or consumers in their car or at home. I can imagine Jeff Immelt actually in my refrigerator understanding I'm drinking orange juice or beer instead of orange juice. So how do you make sure this notion of privacy and trust is in tow in terms of this relationship?
Yeah. I think about the sort of the tension between cool and creepy.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
It's like Amazon Alexa is cool. Like, really? It's like, okay. Well, I have one too.
I like it, actually.
Yeah, I do too. It's amazing. Nobody can speak out against that product, by the way. In Silicon Valley, it would be a serious career-limiting move. No, it's an awesome product. I do love it. But I think about, when you go too far, things become creepy. And frankly, it's sort of what's underlying that is the privacy and security issues of our age. It's a huge deal. I think there's a significant delta between generations in terms of how folks think about privacy. You've got Peter Diamandis on the one hand who says, like, get over it, privacy's dead. And then you've got the other end where you have Tim Cook, who's sort of essentially pivoted his entire company to a message of privacy first. And I think, you've got companies that are everywhere in between. This is a new muscle that, as you get data about your customers, you have to exercise and start to learn. I think it's, so that's one of the most important challenges of the technology, or that the technology creates. There was an interesting story in the New York Times some time ago about Target, who had amazing insight into their customer base, and they saw a young lady who went in and bought some vitamins like zinc and some other things that might be used for pregnancy, and then they said, oh, looks like she's pregnant, and started sending her pamphlets in the mail with diapers and so on. Of course, she was 17, and her dad saw this and was like, what the heck's going on? That was a big story. Well, they learned from that, and what they did was they started hiding the ads so that the teenage, the young lady who was pregnant would sort of be like flipping through the magazine, and there on the fourth page up in the right-hand corner was something for, diapers. And sort of serendipitous, wow, look at that. So all of a sudden this is not creepy anymore. Now, I don't think that sort of being underhanded and hiding things that you know about your customers is the right answer. But I do think that we're going to have to develop a new muscle, and I think the customer success teams and leaders have to be the proponent of the customer in this case. You're going to have the product teams who want way more than you're really comfortable giving them. And that tension, I think that the folks in this room need to actually be the back pressure in the system to say, look, we have to stand up for users' rights and privacy. We have to stand up for that. There's no right answer. But you have to have that tension in your company, and you all have to be the representative of the customer, in my opinion, on this front, to push back and make sure that that tension exists in your company, and that you guys don't go super far into the creepy world, as opposed to being a cool and awesome experience.
And Ganesh, any thoughts?
I would say your brand matters in a world of where customers are struggling with what this means for them. I think a few things. One is value trumps everything. If you can show your customers value with data, it trumps everything. And also, you have to build a relationship that's trust and also radical transparency. If you're using their data for your own benefit, customers will soon not want their data in your cloud or in your service or they wouldn't want to share their data. So a big part of setting those ground rules is showing the customer the value you can generate from data and also how you're willing to share in that value. And we found that in all the time, when you put customer value and success first, and I'll use examples like we know that we can predict an outage in a nuclear power plant by 90% accuracy, which we're getting better. We used to be 50 and now it's 90. And when we predict that outage, we can save an outage event, which in nuclear terminology is called a scram. It's about $1 million value every day and usually lasts 30 days when it happens. So $30 million. And if I can return that value back to the customer, they're willing to participate. And same thing goes with cloud and security, and people are nervous about connecting big, important, heavy infrastructure that powers and moves the world into an Internet of Things. But if you show them the value of a connected device, and sometimes connected something is safer than a not so connected device. Just so on the same thing with a Target, the hack in the Target happened through a HVAC system, not through their IT environment. Right? So educating the customer is a big part of customer success as well, and making them understand the journey that they have to take and sharing that value.
Absolutely. And when let's change topics a little bit. We have thousands of customer success folks in the room today, professionals that are just doing a great job. When you guys think about this new world, how do you envision the role of customer success specifically in that world, and how does the roles change over time, and how are they going to morph, and what do we need to do to succeed in that new world?
Well, I think I said earlier, and I'll repeat it, when you become a service company, you must have customer success. It's just necessary. And I learned that lesson 7 years ago when we transitioned a product to a service and kind of everything fall apart, and it was a total disaster until we realized, hey, a few smart people have figured out there's this thing that we should be doing called customer success, and we did it, and everything got better. So I think that number one, that function has to become much, much, much more important and prominent in the organization. How many people in this room, I'm curious, have the title of like Chief Customer Success Officer or like a C-level title? I'm just curious about that. C-level titles? Okay, and that I think is becoming much more prevalent, and I think you're going to see that as an indicator of success in the customer success sort of industry, in a sense. So, as if I was sitting in your shoes, what I would think about is, what does it mean for my thing to become connected? And the challenging thing is you shouldn't, or I guess that the ask would be, don't start with technology. Take the technology off the table, and just think about in a world where you could create whatever magical experience you wanted for your customer with your service or product. What would that look like? And what would you want to know? And how would that make the experience better for your customer. Define and get an idea of that experience up front. So, we often get too snarled up on the technology details of like how things are, and so how things could be are obscured. And so don't go talk to the product people, just start from your perspective and assess what could this experience possibly be like, and then work backwards to the technology. Say, okay, in order to do that, we're going to need to have these kinds of things happen, and deliver those as requirements, and get your company inspired towards doing these things by asking for, hey, if we just had this little additional piece of data, we could make progress towards understanding our customers better, delivering a better and more magical experience for them, having a better business model, making things more efficient, and so on and so forth. So that would be the thing I would say in customer success, is that we're going to have to see. We're going to see a huge explosion of this industry. Number one, 10x in the last 3 years, matching the Salesforce growth. I think that's going to probably exceed Salesforce growth, candidly, because every company and industry outside of Silicon Valley has to transform to stay alive. And as they do that, they're going to become aware of the fact that they must implement customer success. This is going to be a huge growth industry.
On that topic, you talked about Peter Day and exponential and all this type of stuff. If you read some of his stuff, he would tell you that a lot of this ultimately will be automated, so the computers are going to take over, and we're not going to be around. You guys you're in the front line of all this stuff. Real, is that true? Is that, just total baloney? Where does it sit in the spectrum?
It's true. I was in Japan 2 weeks ago in Tokyo. We've just launched a partnership with Fanuc. Fanuc are the largest robot arm manufacturer in the world. They work in a lot of your plants, I think. And Dr. Inaba, who's the sort of famous founder of this thing, has been notoriously very secretive for many, many years. Makes Apple look like page 6 on the New York Times. I don't know. Super secretive. No one's ever been to their factory. They opened it up, and we all got to go there. And this blew my mind. The factory is completely dark. There's no lights on because the robots don't need lights to work, and there's no workers in the factory.
No GE.
It's super creepy. It's like, whoa.
We'll get rid of the power plants.
These are like robots making other robots in the dark. That's fucking weird. I'm sorry. And they're like, and I'm like, well, how often do you need to come and do something here? And they're like, about once every 30 days. So they load up all the materials on one end, and these things go to work, and they lock the doors, turn off the lights, and they come back a few weeks later. Wow. On the other end, they've got, this is a continuous production. It's running 24/7. So the answer is yes, it's going to happen. And there are going to be huge disruptions to people. Self-driving cars is a great example. We just had that platooning across the country, across Europe. I think it was by Volvo or something.
Yeah, the trucks, yeah.
Yeah. 70% of the cost of trucking and shipping is the people that are involved. So, but then think about the people. So huge disruption to people. And I think that as a industry, we need to think about that very carefully. We can't there's many people who want to just kind of, in the Diamandis sort of camp, would be rush headlong into this age of abundance, which is what he calls it. And it's true it's an age of abundance unless you're the trucker who loses your job, in which case it's not an age of abundance. It may be that the diapers got cheaper at Walmart, but that doesn't matter if you don't have a paycheck to buy them.
Nothing of nothing is nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to, as a society, deal with that problem, because I believe, McKinsey Global Institute had recently talked about a study that they did where they said the impact to workers is overstated. That machine intelligence and robotics are going to not so much displace as augment people and make them much more efficient. I believe they are underestimating the effects, and I think that as a human race, we have that general affliction. We underestimate how much things are going to change in 10 years. So I believe it's probably better, it's more severe than anyone thinks.
So you feel good, though, about the political spectrum and how the two candidates are going to address the problem?
Look, the situation with Trump is reflective of this. Why is he so, you've got the middle class who are completely disenfranchised because their income's been falling for the last X number of years. And that problem's going to get worse as we don't need these low-paying, low-skilled jobs that go away. That's a really horrible situation, and it could lead to bad outcomes if we don't think about it.
Ganesh, any?
So I probably have a different viewpoint that yes, in the advanced world, advanced manufacturing, brilliant manufacturing, all of those things are going to automate. There's going to be a lot of automation. There's going to be new disruption because of that. But I'm probably in the camp of Peter Diamandis of thinking about the macro world at large. When we think about there's 1.3 billion people in the world today that don't have access to power. So imagine if they have access to electricity, what economies can be launched and what new businesses can be built and how much creativity we will unleash in the world. We actually believe as part of the digital revolution, there are lots of industries that are completely immature with software and digital technologies. In electricity, we think we're going to create another 3.5 million jobs purely from the industry going digital. This is net positive, right? So there's lots of opportunities if you look around. Yes, manufacturing is going to be automated, many automation is going to happen, but there's going to be more value that's going to be created in the world through the growth of economies and growth of infrastructure.
Don't disagree, but can I respond?
Yeah.
Because you disagreed with me, I'll disagree with you.
Yeah.
So I agree,
Yeah.
age of abundance, blah, blah. However, I think you work 2 steps out.
Yeah.
Okay? And we have to take responsibility for what the outcomes of that are. So for
Absolutely.
example, there used to be 100 million horses in the United States. Now there's 20 million. Why? Because we don't need them to drive people around anymore and transport goods. Okay, well, I don't think that's a great outcome for people. And I think we have to think about the impacts to people that all of this greatness is going to achieve. I agree. It's awesome. Like, there's a shocking and scary stat that I saw the other day, which was that most people in the United States hate their jobs. That was like very disheartening to me. I was like super sad about that. And I was like, wow, that really sucks. And I think one of the causes of that is the jobs that we would like to replace. They're just boring. And they're better done by computers and robots. True, for many jobs. Driving cross country, I don't know, maybe it's like a super awesome job, but I don't think that's very fun. I don't want to be a cross country trucker. If the computer can do it better, amen. So I think we're going to see
The displacement's going to happen.
but it's going to happen on an order of magnitude that we haven't seen before. So planning for that, thinking about it, and investing in it
And
is
quicker.
really important, in my opinion. In fact, more important than people think today.
You get the last word, and then we have to.
Awesome.
We're going to get crooked off the stage here.
No, I think, as companies become, customer success is beyond software, okay? So many of you in Silicon Valley, we work in SaaS companies, but look at the opportunities in lots of industries that are becoming digital, which is what Rowan and I are talking about. And in those companies, customer success takes a different dimension of knowing your customer's environment, which is not just deploying software, adopting and using the software. It's really about their business outcomes, and that leads to new business models, and that's really what we're excited about as we see the world transforming.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, and thank you all for
Thank you.
attending.
Great.